let's talk about your favorite company, OpenAI, your dream job. No, startup
No.
hack and OpenAI don't get along too well. But let's talk about what their strategy is, and I think we're gonna have differing opinions here. OpenAI just hired former Meta ad executive Dave Duggan, who spent over 10 years at Meta to run their advertising push. And now he's being asked to run their advertising push for ChatGPT. Sam Altman literally said 2 years ago that ads were, quote, the last resort for a business model, and that ads plus AI were uniquely unsettling to him. That's a direct quote from Sam Altman. Here's what will when you think about it in the comments, would you use an LLM for free if it was the best LLM on earth if you had to use ads? Think about that. Okay, so David Shapiro noted publicly that no other frontier AI lab out here is hiring Facebook ad people, and he's right, and that's a signal worth paying attention to. But this is where I think he's wrong, and I want to dive into that in just a second. But when you're burning through capital at this rate, OpenAI and your core product still isn't profitable, you don't get to be picky about your business model anymore. The company was supposed to build AGI and change humanity, and now they're figuring out how to run ad banners. Let that sink in. Okay. Start back. I'll let you have a whack at this, and then I'll go ahead and take my whack at it, and we'll see where we meet.
So, the internet originally originated, late 90s, came in with a boom, right? And everybody's like, free web pages were everywhere. There was all this static content, and people were throwing up web pages as fast as they could. And as soon as you had a .com behind your name, you added $1 million to your valuation, which at the time would be worth probably, 3-ish million today, right? So like just throwing a .com on your name made you worth that. And then what started coming up? Ad banners everywhere, right? Everybody started figuring out, how do I monetize this? And that's when we started seeing ads the first time, was around the 2000s. We didn't really see monetization. So again, this lesson is not new. This history is not new. As soon as a company starts to get desperate, you'd see those ads start to pop up. And that's how you could always tell the desperation of a company. So part of me reaches back to a long time of history to say, every time you start seeing a company that says we have to do ad. Now we can look at Facebook themselves. Actually, Zuckerberg was an interesting play in this very early on. If you've ever watched Social Network, there's a lot of drama in the Social Network movie. There's actually a level of truth in it. Everybody kept telling Zuck at first, go to ads. This can be huge. This can be huge. This can be huge. And it was like, clearly that's what, Facebook makes all their money, right? And they do. They just are a printing machine at this point. But Zuck held off for a long time, and he found other ways to fund the business before he did it. So I'm actually going to give Zuck some credit here and say he held off long enough to get the product mature. The problem is OpenAI is not mature enough. Their LLMs, their frameworks, they're dangerous. And when we already are starting to see this creep in, people are already turning tail and running. It's going to end up being the worst decision they made.
Okay, here's my turn. Okay, I have some quick follow-up questions, just bear with me here. There's two companies that are kings at ads. You can probably name them pretty quickly. What would you say?
Probably Google and Facebook.
Google and Facebook, right? If you had to hire somebody to run your ad campaign, who would you go to? Google or Facebook? Now, I think Google's pockets are a lot deeper to protect their people than Meta's. I think Meta's kind of turned into a revolving door of executives because they're more
That's
tech race, and having the name Google in your LinkedIn is a lot more powerful than probably Meta, or it's probably a lot more stable than Meta or OpenAI at this point. Okay. Facebook had approximately 70 to 1 million users before they started implementing their ads. That's not that much. Compared to how many users the free version of ChatGPT has, it's probably 1%, right? I think ChatGPT is around 100 million. I haven't fact checked that, but the magnitude of how many users OpenAI has on a free version is a lot more than OpenAI than Facebook had. So you can argue that they've actually held off longer on running ads. Now I know Sam Altman has his quotes. Okay, here's my follow-up. YouTube has ads, and you and I can see in our analytics how many people pay for YouTube Premium or not. There's a lot of people that don't care that they get ads. I am shocked every time I open my YouTube analytics at the amount of people that don't have YouTube Premium because they don't care. They just want to watch YouTube for free, and they don't care about the mid-roll, the pre-roll, the post-roll ads. Some people just don't care. My wife likes to watch Hulu, and I tell her we're too broke to pay for the premium version, so we watch the ads. I don't think people care about ads, and I think it's a revenue-generating machine. I don't think OpenAI is wrong for their free version of ChatGPT to run ads, and I think there's a fantastic playbook, and I think they're going to make a lot of money for running ads in ChatGPT, because I think there are people that you and I both know in our family that are too afraid to leave ChatGPT because it knows them too well. That's my take.
So the difference that so with Facebook, one of the first parts of the algorithm that they had to perfect, and they talked about this very publicly, right? They actually, when they started rolling out ads, Zuck was actually pretty open about the fact that they originally started with a 10-to-1 ratio on post to ad. Then they slowly crept it down to 7-to-1. And then nowadays they're running closer to 3-to-1. Now that took time, right? And so, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong in that, right? But as they started to do that, see, Facebook's never actually started to pay for a premium. They never did. When YouTube started to roll out ads, they immediately jumped to a premium model, right? I put my family on it because I didn't really want to see ads. I didn't want my 3-year-old who watched YouTube, right or wrong, like to see ads. And so I get that. And if, but the difference, what's a little different about AI versus any other platform that we've ever had with ads is that the ads wouldn't skew the content. So the difference is your feed was your feed on Facebook or on Google. If you're going to search for something, you kind of know you're going to see ads. With AI, where you're going to look for it as a source of truth. Now, that's a whole discussion in itself. But when you go to look for it as a source of truth, and woven into it is an ad that's not labeled as an ad, that's the difference. That's the reason I have a kind of a moral ground around it, is because on Facebook, you knew when they were ads. They always had an ad banner. Google, the top search above the bar is ads. Like, that. And they're very open and public about that. AI is not. And the problem is it will skew the training models. And the jokes that Anthropic poked at them on the Super Bowl commercial are not wrong.
I hope that OpenAI, because I do think that this is a viable business model for them, I hope that they do. I hope they are fair with their ads. So just to put it into context, early 2026, ChatGPT had 900 million weekly active users on just their free tier. If they turn on ads, I think that they will instantly become profitable. I think it will hurt Meta. I think people will rather advertise on ChatGPT and get catered ads. I mean, if I watch a Tesla video and I switch over to a free version of YouTube, I'm not going to get Tesla Powerwall videos or energy Powerwall videos.
So the counter that I'll do with that is, that Walmart is moving away from OpenAI, because originally they were one of the first partners to say, hey, we're going to build search into AI. And after more than a quarter and a half of doing it, Walmart has now turned off and moved away from the partnership because they said it's not working.
Yeah. And I for whatever that is, I don't know how ads affect that, but I do think it will be a great place for people to advertise. And I am very excited to see the statistics around it. And I think this has been a fascinating conversation. I just think it's the natural progression of technology that whenever there's users, there's ad space, there's advertisers that will pay for those eyeballs.
Of course, one of the biggest differences that myself and most people that are in the industry around it is the differences they're inserting them into the content. Facebook, Meta, everybody else did it with a level of maturity, I'm going to call it, and we're willing to label them as ads. The difference is OpenAI is inserting them right into the content. So they're making the ads the content, and that's the difference. They don't label it with a little note or something saying, hey, this is an ad.
Yeah. So YouTube has 2.6 billion monthly active users. OpenAI has 900 million weekly on the free tier. However that translates, you can decide. But to put it in perspective, YouTube generated $60 billion in total revenue for 2025, which would help significantly with OpenAI's burn rate, and I think may keep them afloat for a little longer. So I think we're going to see similar numbers with revenue. So that's my take on the ad spend. I think you have a fascinating take as well. And time will tell when OpenAI is public and we can see their financials. We're going to see how well it actually works. And whether we have moral grounds for how they run advertising, it probably won't dissuade 900 million people. Even if it dissuaded half, it's still a great advertising base.
So I think they've dropped considerably from the 900 over the last quarter. They've had almost a 20% turn away. So they've actually had the fastest drop in history, and turning on ads is not going to help it go up.
No, I agree. And that's natural attrition until they drop their next model and it's slightly better. And now we're at the 1% game where each model tries to improve 1%.
I think the move to ads is a show of desperation. The difference is Google and Facebook and all of them did it at a point of strength. OpenAI is doing it at a point of desperation. Those
I
are very
think if
different
Sam
positions.
Altman didn't say those quotes, we wouldn't be looking at it like that. Unfortunately, he
Mm,
said that, and they're written in history. But I don't think $60 billion is a sign of desperation. I think that's an opportunity. $60 billion.
maybe, but I mean, I guess we don't have it in our notes here, but the 17% junk bond is also another sign of desperation.
So the 17% junk bond is on a $4 billion round that they're running. So that will cost approximately $700 million. So would you pay $700 million to get $4 billion? Probably. The math makes sense. They just closed a $110 billion funding round. So they have the cash to pay the $700 million to get $4 billion as kind of a last chance squeeze before they IPO to get any other bond partners into the round. So whether you want to view it as a junk bond or not, they can afford it. And I don't really see an issue with it. I think people like to make fun of it, but the math makes sense. It'll cost them $700 million to get $4 billion.
So I actually don't think they'll IPO. I think they will. I think they will get stopped. I think Elon's lawsuit is going to be more of a nuisance than they want to admit. I think there's a lot of people who are predicting that their IPO will fail. And if they do, they're going to IPO way lower than they want to, which actually will harm the investors. And there's a lot of predictions against their IPO with a lot of different analysis on this. But OpenAI is trying to ship everything out of pure desperation. Every move they're making right now is total desperation.
We talked about it last week and got a lot of views on it. Actually, their code red. So I do think that they are scrambling. Now, whether you said that you don't think they'll IPO, I think they have to IPO. They just closed the largest private funding round in history. They have called all of their aunts and uncles to ask for money. Like they have rang everybody's phone multiple times. The only place they can go to for more funding is the public. That's the only place they can go to at the moment. I think people are tired of funding OpenAI. And I think that the last place OpenAI can turn for a cash raise is to go public.
So one of the things that'll have to happen is they're going to have to go through certain audits, certain disclosures. They're going to have to go through security with their platform. I think they're going to fail at every single level of those. I think as they open their books, people are going to find a lot of nefarious things. I think we're going to be talking about a different Sam as a comparison, right? And I think we're going to be looking at something very similar to the crypto world, where you start to open some of those books, and clearly things didn't look great. I think as you pull back the covers on OpenAI, my prediction is you're going to find a lot of things that are going to scare a lot of investors really quick that they didn't have to disclose in a private round. If you remember, Sam Altman got fired because of deceptive practices. Those deceptive practices never stopped, and they've had a trail of history of them for almost a decade.
$110 billion can pay a lot of really good lawyers for a long time.
So, yeah, but the public, we'll see. But the other part is,
I do think they'll IPO. I think they'll clean up their books. I think that's what they have been doing for the last year. I think they've been cleaning everything up, getting ready for everything you just described. They have to IPO. There's really no other way for them to go. They can't stay private for much longer.
Yep. I mean, I understand that they're in points of desperation, because that's the whole point. And I think the thing about it is, when you're burning $10 billion of cash per quarter, right, which is about what they're burning right now, the public will take one look at that and see the path to profitability is not a real thing. So when they IPO, they're going to get absolutely tanked.
If they're burning, if they can get close to the YouTube revenue numbers, the YouTube revenue is 60 billion at 2 billion users, 1.2 billion users. If they can get even close to 60 billion, they're going to be okay. If they can get close to 40 billion, they'll be okay.
So remember, the difference with YouTube is they were able to pay their content creators. That's been one of the things, right? We're streaming on YouTube right now because there's content creators. Where is that for OpenAI?
I don't know. Well, there's ad space, which is what content creators create the ad space. The users create the ad space. Like, the user is the content creator. It creates the ad space for itself.
Yeah, we'll definitely have differing opinions here. I think we're seeing Anthropic just absolutely trounce. I mean, the numbers are showing it. Corporate take on on OpenAI is lower than it has ever been. Anthropic is higher than it's ever been, and Anthropic's going to eat their lunch. And I think when you see the two try to IPO side by side, I think Anthropic's just going to run because they have all those corporate numbers. They have squeaky clean books. They have a lot of different things. They've already settled the lawsuits. OpenAI hasn't spent the time to settle the lawsuits, and so I think you're going to see OpenAI just get dragged through the mud.
I don't think they'll want to settle the lawsuits until after they go public.
Well, I agree, and that's I think some of the things that you're going to find and uncover as the auditors start digging in.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I can tell you love OpenAI, and I don't necessarily either. I like to take a contrarian point of view, but I do think
That's fine.
I do think that there is a world in which they are successful in running ads.